The Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a full game recap and everything you need to know that happened during the game and all the stats and injuries involved. So, you know when it says this is the most complete game, all around everyone played good? Well, this was the most incomplete game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost to the Jaguars 20-10, and it seems like all around they struggled at every single level, from coaching to all the players at every single position. But anyway, let's just look at the stats and who contributed to the team. So to start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett, he obviously started at quarterback, but then got injured at the late in the first half, the last drive of the first half, and then Mitchell Trubisky took over. But before Kenny Pickett went out the game with the injury, a rib injury it looks like, he went 10 for 16 with 73 yards. And then Mitchell Trubisky took over, and he completed 15 of 27 passes for 139 yards, 1 touchdown, but threw 2 interceptions. One coming on a late pass with basically a Hail Mary, which wasn't really a Hail Mary at the very end of the game. So that's the Steelers' passing yards. Kenny Pickett, he did a decent job in the first half, nothing too great. They couldn't get much first downs, but then he got injured. Mitchell Trubisky, it looked like he was going to lead the Steelers to maybe a comeback, but then made some bad decisions with his ball, throwing interceptions, and just making some bad reads on the play. And then the Steelers lost the game. But looking at the rushing yards, this is way different from last week. Last week, the Steelers had their most complete game running the ball, but this week, they did basically nothing. Their rushing attempts had 5 carries for 19 yards for Jaylen Warren, which is 3.8 yards per carry. Mitchell Trubisky also had 3 carries, basically quarterback runs, when the play broke down for 18 yards. And then Najee Harris has 7 carries for 13 yards, which is a bad 1.9 yards per carry. But then Kelvin Austin, he added another wide receiver run for 2 carries for 10 yards. Also, Kenny Pickett, 1 carry for 10 yards. So all over, the rushing attempts and the rushing yardage and the rushing yardage per attempt, it was just bad altogether. The offensive line couldn't do nothing. They could not run block. And then the running backs, the quarterbacks, whoever was running the ball, could not find any space to run. And it was just a poor performance running the ball. Also, looking at the receiving yards, this one, it was a little bit better. Deontay Johnson, he added 8 receptions for 85 yards, which is a good 10.6 yards per reception. And then Najee Harris, most of his yardage came at the very end of the game, where they were just dumping it off in the final series, and then him running out of bounds to stop the clock. He had 5 receptions for 42 yards. Cameron Heyward's little brother, Connor Heyward, he added 5 receptions for 25 yards, looking like he's the starter at tight end and the guy who's going to be playing the most when Pat Freiermuth is still out with injury. George Pickens, he had 1 reception for 22 yards. That's 22 yards per reception. And he had 1 touchdown. So you would think that him having such good weeks, the past 2 weeks, getting over 100 yards in both games, that he would be seeing a lot of targets. That he would be throwing the ball a lot. But no, he was only throwing the ball basically 2 times, and one of them was basically over his head, the other one was on the sideline, and one was for a touchdown. So I'm basically saying that he got thrown the ball twice, even though he did it 3 times, 3 targets, but basically only 2 targets. But George Pickens, he made the most of it, adding a touchdown where he leaped over the defender, ran into the end zone. Jaylen Warren, he added 4 receptions for 19 yards. Kelvin Austin, who basically barely even played, had 2 receptions for 19 yards. And then Ronnie Williams dropped so many passes, and you see some guy who's not on the list. Who's missing on this list? Who did not even get a reception, but basically played the whole entire game? Allen Robinson. I want to make a video on that specifically about Allen Robinson. 0 receptions in a whole game played, where he basically played every single snap. On defense, looking at the defense, enough with the offense. The defense actually held their own up against the Jaguars. There were some breakdowns in the secondary, especially with the safeties after Minkah Fitzpatrick went down, with DeMonte Casey and Joey Porter Jr. and stuff of that nature. But looking at the defense, they kind of held their own. They forced turnovers. They got sacks. Not too much sacks, but they held their own in that category. Looking at the sacks component, Elandon Roberts led the team with 1.5 sacks, and TJ Watt got 1 sack to take the Jaguars out of field goal position when they were about to kick a field goal. They kind of saved them there. And then half a sack went to Alex Highsmith. So that's what happened in the sack category. Looking at the interception category, DeMonte KZ got an interception in the end zone, but for some reason he took it out of the end zone, stepped out on like the 2-yard line, and then the Steelers did nothing with that drives. So even though he got an interception, he did nothing and made a costly error taking it out of the end zone. And looking at the tackles components, Cole Holcomb led the team in tackles with 7, and Keanu Neal also had 7. Usually Macus Patrick, he would be here, but he got injured. Just in case if you don't know, he got injured in the first quarter. It looks like it was a hamstring injury, and then it was reported that he was out for the game with that hamstring injury. So hopefully he's able to make a speedy recovery for the Steelers. Now, looking at the Jaguars component and Jaguars stats, Trevor Lawrence, he went 24 for 32 in his passing for 1 touchdown and 1 interception. He played a complete game. He wasn't really too outstanding, but he did make the necessary throws for them to win the game. Travis Etienne, he was amazing, especially running the ball and receiving the ball. Travis Etienne had 24 carries, 79 yards. That's not a good average. It's only 3.3, but he was efficient and kind of like wearing down the Steelers and making the timely runs on the open field. Trevor Lawrence, he added 1 carry for 10 yards. Looking at the receptions, Evan Ingram led the team in receptions with 10 for 88 yards. Calvin Ridley, who usually doesn't get the most targets or kind of any targets, looking at their past games, he had 6 receptions for 83 yards. Travis Etienne, like I said, was very big today with 3 receptions, 70 yards, and a very long touchdown. Christian Kirk, who's usually their leading receiver, the Steelers held him in check for 4 receptions and 46 yards. So even though the Steelers kind of held them in check, the Jaguars did make some timely receptions and timely runs to end up winning this game. On defense for the Jacksonville Jaguars, they had interceptions after interceptions and should have had even more interceptions. In the very first drive, Kenny Pickett showed through interception to the flat, but it was dropped. But then Wingard got an interception off of Mitchell Trubisky, and then late in the game, he also got an interception. Johnson got an interception off of Mitchell Trubisky as well. And to lead the team in tackles, their linebacker, Alukun. So that's what it looks like for the Jacksonville Jaguars recap and the stats recap of the game. Just kind of injury updates. Like I said, Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's injured with a hamstring injury. And also, Kenny Pickett, he's injured with a ribs injury. It looks like Deontay Johnson's also dealing with some type of injury, but it's been looking like he's been dealing with that injury for a while now. Even though he's come back from injury reserve, he just does not look like the same person in terms of burst. It still looks like he's dealing with a hamstring injury, and now it looks like he got checked out for a chest injury. So he just doesn't look right as well. But those are the Steelers stats, the Steelers injuries, and the Jacksonville Jaguars stats for this game. I'll talk more in depth about this game from a perspective of the Steelers in future videos about Allen Robinson and the team overall from every single level of why this was a bad game. But as of now, this is the full recap of the game and everything that happened during it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about this game, what you liked, what you didn't like, and also what trades the Steelers can make at this upcoming trade deadline on Tuesday. But don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below as well if you like Steelers content, analysis, and reports. Like the video, turn on post notifications down below for the channel as well, so you get notified whenever I post next Steelers video. I cover everything Pittsburgh Steelers, news, rumors, highlights, reports, analysis, reactions, game breakdowns, everything like that. And I cover the game before and after. So stay tuned to the channel with notifications on. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all later. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.